Okay, thanks. And you can all interject at any point. That's absolutely fine. But we are going to get started with the 2022 CASP assessment. LPAC, I think, has already begun. And when we talk about CASP, basically we're talking about every assessment. We're talking about physical fitness. We're talking about the CAA, the California Alternative Assessment, the Spanish assessment that we never administer, the SBAC, which is the computer adaptive piece. And that also includes the performance tasks as well. So CASP is just a big word that the state has thrown all assessments into. LPAC is kind of like the sister to CASP. And it is nice that California Department of Education and ETS is the vendor that CDE pays all this money to manage these. They're kind of bringing them into the same platforms. So if you're a LPAC coordinator site, it's starting to align with what CASP looks like and vice versa. So you're not having to learn two different worlds. It's more one big world at this point. So that's a bonus. I have created CASP accounts for all of you, for your principals if you're not a principal, and you are site coordinators. And as a site coordinator, you have the ability, well, Faustino, I haven't made you a site coordinator yet in CASP. I need to go do that. And if you don't have the ability to create accounts for people, you're not a site coordinator, and we'll need to address that. And the reason that you would want to be able to create accounts is because maybe you have a paraeducator who's in the room helping out, or a one-on-one, or somebody else, or a new teacher who came in January, or a long-term sub who is working with this classroom during the CASP assessment. All of these accounts would need to be created, and I just don't have the ability to know exactly who's in what classroom on that day of assessment. You're much more in tune, and you have the ability to do that. And I'm gonna share my screen really quick with you. I'm going to show you what this site looks like. And we're just going to do a 3-minute walkthrough. Most of you are familiar, but as I look at the screen, I see this wide range of experience with CASP. And CASP is literally casp.org. We go to that site. Initially, we're going to be spending a lot of our time in the Test Operation Management System, or TOMS, just going to be playing around in here. And TOMS is where we go in, and so the first time you log in, you will have to sign an electronic security affidavit. CASP is really, really, really serious about security. It's like, I could probably hack your bank accounts easier than I can get into your CASP account. And that's really a little bit of a pain. Because when you switch a device, you then have to go and remember your password again. Or if you're just a cheater like me, you ask Google to remember it. Because I'm not too stressed about security. I think if people wanted to get into mischief, there's other places to cause mischief. So the first time you will have to sign, and that's everybody this year. That is teachers, principals, paras, anybody who's in the room acting as an administrator will need to sign, and it's all digital. There's no paper, which is kind of nice. And there's reports that you can go in later and say, okay, I've got a report of all the people who signed. But you can't get into TOMS without signing that security affidavit now. Go into TOMS. Most of you will have the choice of going into CASP or LPAC. We're going to focus on CASP. And create a new user is as simple as going to users and clicking add. That's it. That's for teachers. If it is a resource, teacher or a special day teacher, they need to be a site coordinator, and I'll have to do those. So if you have a resource teacher who's not in there, let me know. One thing that you'll want to do pretty soon, so if I'm, say, for example, Faustino at Highland, I'm going to want to go view everybody who has an account at my school. I'm just going to run it with blank names, and I'm going to search. And I've got 63 people at Highland with accounts. Some of these names, he is going to know. He's going to know who Rochelle Arcega is, just because I think that's a teacher there. He is not going to know Marcus Bishop. So Faustino, if you don't know them, or all of us, if you don't know these people, please do not delete them. The reason we have these other names in here is because they're probably either an independent study teacher, virtual academy teacher, a district office personnel, or somebody's added them for some reason. So please don't delete accounts. There's just not really a reason to. If somebody is just being jerky and whatever about it, just have a talk and we'll just remove their account. But for the most part, these are either district office people who need access because they have to go and make some special education modifications, or because they're virtual or independent study academy. Anybody have questions about the accounts issue or questions about that?
I do, Lucius.
What you got, Key?
I had a teacher who has left our campus has left the district. So should I remove him because he was one of the teachers who was supposed to be testing? But should I remove him from Tom's?
You could.
Okay.
It's not likely that he's going to, try to sabotage Pennycook testing from wherever he's at now. And you can't delete. You can only inactivate. But you could inactivate those people if you know they're gone. So that it just means, if you're like me, you like a tidy list, and you could tidy up your list by inactivating these people who you know have left your site.
Okay,
or
thank
left
you.
the district. Yeah. So making the accounts, that'll be the first thing you want to do. And again, I'm going to restate, if you have a special education teacher or a special day teacher, they need site coordinator permissions, because they may want to go in and adjust the designated supports or accessibility features for the students. And I'll have to create those accounts. Okay. Let's talk about the testing window. So the testing window is open. You can start testing tomorrow if you want. I do need you to wrap up by April 30th. That's when the window closes. You'd be absolutely crazy if you started tomorrow. It would be nonsensical and foolish. Most likely, you're probably going to want to start testing after spring break. And I would discourage anybody from testing. Yeah, Julie, you're right. Not April 30th. It's May 30th. Yeah, you're right. The window closes the last full month of school on that last working day. I would discourage anybody from starting right that week when you come back from spring break. Just let the kids get their feet, let the teachers get their feet underneath them. If you've got some virtual settings, it may be a different world, and you just may need to be using every day possible to test a kid here or a kid there. But generally at the school sites, after spring break, after people have their feet underneath them, that'll be the window. PTE, or the physical fitness test. I know some of you deal with that. That is 5th grade, 7th grade, and 9th grade. It's generally on the teachers, and we'll support the teachers on that. They can go into areas and mark that, but that window opened up. So with nice weather, your teachers can be out there if they want to be doing their mile or their curls or all of the flex, all that type of stuff. So that can be going on at any time. Brenda, question? Can't hear you there.
For the physical fitness, it's just areas that they enter, right? There's nothing in the CASSPP.
No, they just go, there is literally a physical fitness assessment sheet in Aries that they go into. And this year, there is no height or weight requirements for the physical fitness test. So you've really got 4 things to do. The hardest part will be the mile, and virtual, there is no exception for virtual. They will have to be administering that physical fitness test as well. AJ?
You mentioned the virtual students. How are we handling that? Because I know during the pandemic, whatever we could do, they tried to do the secure testing site or whatever. How are we handling that? Or are they kind of giving us the latitude to do that, or do we have to somehow bring all these kids in?
There is no latitude. There is no latitude. We do our best. So the state has said you are still expected to try and reach your 95% participation rates. I expect that they're going to say, oh, you couldn't make 95%, try harder next year, and move on. Next year, I expect there will be some penalties, not penalties. Their penalties are saying, you know, you did bad on the dashboard. But that penalty or that disclaimer on the dashboard will not be there this year about participation rates. So virtually we'll do our best. I mean, it's like literally going to a Google Classroom, having that discussion in the Google Meet, and then saying, okay, now we're going to hop over to SBAC. I'm going to start a session. That's how that'll have to happen. And I expect TLs, teachers, designated support staff will probably be trying to capture some of those kids virtually as well as we do our best to get the kids assessed. Julie?
Okay, you kind of clarified after the fact. So when I heard his question, it was like, are we still remote testing or in-person testing? And I was wondering if that was particular to PE. For PE, we have to bring the kids in, but we still have the option to virtually test any students that we can't get into the building.
Yeah.
Okay.
If there's, you know, extended illness or, you know, whatever reason,
Yeah.
we are expected to test as many kids as we can in the physical setting. But if we need to catch a kid here or there virtually, we can do that. There's nothing like that. And Tamara asked the question, are we our school site? So Mare Island covering the Mare Island kids in virtual academy? No. The virtual academy staff and ISA staff will get that pleasure. Tamara will only be testing the kids who are this year on Aries rosters at Mare Island Health and Fitness Academy. So it's basically, you're looking at your Aries school and you're capturing those kids. Now,
you're just talking about if a kid was out for COVID for 10 days or whatever.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. So hypothetical scenario, classroom teacher has done all of their testing, and then all of a sudden this kid's out for 2 weeks. Maybe this kid's you know, someone you really want to get tested because that could impact their LPAC or their redesignation status. If they're, you know, someone who is on the cusp of being redesignated, you really want to get that done, you can get it done virtually. Mm-hmm. Okay. Regarding technology, while we're kind of in the virtual classroom setting, talking about all of it, you will be having to use district devices. So a kid cannot use their iPad or their Chromebook or their laptop or MacBook that they bring to school if you are in that situation. That's more of a high school type thing or a virtual thing. But we must use district devices because they have the CASSPP secure browser on them. And I don't even want to get into district iPads. Everybody has enough Chromebooks. We're using Chromebooks for CASSPP. So don't ask about iPads and can we do that? Key?
For the listening portion this year, because in the previous times we needed, when Gloria was doing it, we had to have extra speakers so that everyone in the group could hear, the 3rd through 5th grade. Are they using headphones this year to listen to the listening portion of the exam, or are we projecting it through speakers on our Chromebooks to them?
You're speaking LPAC, right?
Yes, LPAC. I'm sorry. You were talking about CAS, but it is when you started talking about devices, it just reminded me of that.
I honestly can't give you an answer because I'm learning LPAC this year.
Okay.
But I would expect things. I honestly can't answer you, Key. I don't know. Sorry.
And I'm sorry. I had a little senior moment and switched from LPAC to CAS on accident until you said it.
Yeah,
So
Julie, you have a.
Yeah, the kids listen on a headset.
okay. Thank you, Julie.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Speaking of, in terms of purchasing, if you don't have what you need, push your principals to get what you need. There is money out there. Sites have money. Headphones are a good expenditure. You should be fine in terms of devices. The other thing with devices, they do need to be, if it's a Chromebook, it does need to be Chrome OS 91 or higher. And that should be any device that's been turned on this year, but you do want to check. You can't go to a closet and pull a device that's been sitting there for a couple of years and hand it to a kid. What you'll get is this error, and you probably saw it during, you might have seen it during the district assessments where it says resolution, this device resolution will not work or something like that. So make sure that you've got something that's relatively current. You may want to task your LMTs with checking devices, and you can send me a request saying, can you just shoot me a list of all our devices that we have at our school and which ones are not up to spec, so that you can go and find that device because you can see who the last user was. Brenda?
Just a question about headphones. If we need to order headphones, do you have like a list or something somewhere, what headphones we can purchase and where to get them from? Because I don't even know where to even start to look.
Yeah, a couple of people have been asking me, and certain people want different things. So if you say, we just want some headphones that are good for a couple of years, I'll go get you a bunch of $7 headphones. If you say I want like high-end headphones with speakers, then I'll go get those. Headphones range between $7 and $25 a pair. Generally, I kind of push people towards the $7 ones because kids are really good at destroying things, and they can break a $25 pair of headphones relatively well, just like they can with the $7 ones.
So are we letting you know how many we need, or are we ordering them at our site?
Let me know and I'll get you a quote.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I want 150 headphones, and we'd like them in the $7 range.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What about adapters, Lucius? Can we also email you about getting like a USB to headphone port adapter?
If you want to do that.
Our kinders have broken off their pins in their so many devices.
You know what? This is just me being geeky, but I got these. It's like a little flexi thing. So when they jerk it out, it just kind of flexes. They're like $3. So I can get you whatever you want. You just, and we can have a talk about if you want USB, if you want these little flexible adapters that kind of prevent things from getting snatched out sideways or whatever. And I'll work with you all on this. That's fine.
Angela, we also ordered a small set of USB headsets because the kids think the little USB adapter things are like a cool thing, and they grow legs quickly just because they look techy and they're small, like a vape pen. And so we just ordered for kids who had busted ports. Like, I kept a bucket of USB headsets that they didn't walk off with as quickly as the little adapters.
Okay.
And that's an option too.
Okay. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's all kinds of fun stuff. Now, if I'm at a high school or a middle school, I'm just keeping it simple. Those kids, you might have 30 headsets at the library, but for the most part, they're bringing their Apple AirPods and they're going to use those, and they don't want somebody else's stuff touching their head because it's absolutely disgusting or it's just not cool. So, different boats for different people. That's why it's just impossible for me to buy as a district. Independent study, they're bringing their stuff. And if you need a few on the side, just get a few on the side for those kids that have to have them. So that's the tech piece. Training your teachers and your staff. There is a new way to train teachers this year. I don't know if you're familiar with Moodle. Moodle is kind of like an online training system that the CDE has developed to walk teachers through. It's like a 12-minute PD, a virtual PD that you can walk them through, and they can kind of go from step A through Z. And it might be something where you say to your principal, hey, let's have a staff meeting, dismiss 20 minutes early at one point for 3rd through 5th while we work with our K through 2 teachers on this. And the 3rd through 5th teachers are expected to go through this Moodle. You may want to walk through it with them, depending if they're new teachers or if they've administered CAS multiple times. Oh, it's an hour, Julie? Crap. Sorry. So it's a full staff meeting.
Did it. It's 26 minutes of videos and a quiz, 39 minutes of videos and a quiz. Teachers told me that if they just click next, they will advance and then they can take the quizzes. So if they're super familiar and don't have an hour, but for people who are new and they just do the test tutorial for general administration, it's really about an hour. And then if they're looking at all the quick guides and they really need to learn it, it's going to be more than that. Our staff did it yesterday, and most of them were able to finish it during the staff meeting with just a quick intro. We used Danielle's document she shared with the TLs, and most teachers were pretty successful. But it's not 12 minutes.
Oh,
It's longer, unless they cheat, and you can cheat.
Okay. It's supposed to be shorter this year. Sorry. AJ, I see your hand up, and you asked a question that's going to lead me to the next piece about how to get access to that Moodle.
Okay, great. And I was also just wondering too, on the Moodle specifically, do they have like how to have basically, with SPED, they have to upload the kids' accommodations. So is there anything about that? Is that like a whole nother training that we have to go through?
I can answer that.
Go ahead, Julie.
So for everybody else, you would recommend test administration for general assessments for your special ed staff. There's another pathway that is particular to the CA.
Yeah.
And there's also another pathway that's particular to in-depth information about accommodations.
Okay.
So when you get to the Moodle site, there's just a big long menu. And what we looked at as TLs was the general assessments, which was the starting place.
Right.
For special ed, they would probably need to add, if they're severe, the CA, and if they're working on accommodations and have never done it before, you would add that piece. And that's kind of lengthy. I feel like it was long.
Yeah.
But I would go through it yourself and figure out how much time you need to allow.
Yeah, because in the past it was just a spreadsheet that so supposedly Tom's talks to SACE and it'll just upload it. But we need to make sure that those accommodations are accurate. And then it's really is just a spreadsheet that they upload that we can upload to Tom's, but I want to make sure that all the accommodations are accurate. Yeah.
Yeah, all the trainings there, and I think we want to respect people's time and not just put them into hours and hours of training if they don't need it. But probably for anybody who's doing CAA for the first time, you would direct them there. But I would go through it yourself so that you can make the most efficient pathway.
Thanks.
All right.
And then I have kind of the same question as, well, not the same, but different for section 504. So where do we make sure that the accommodations for students with section 504, because that comes through Aries, does Aries talk to Tom's, and how does that all get connected? So I make sure that those students are getting their accommodations.
All right, so here's the flow chart from beginning to end for special education. Special education starts with the system that you use. Remind me what that system is called?
Well, SACE is for special ed,
SACE.
but section 504 is not special ed, that's general ed.
No. So for special ed, we start with SACE, and then you have a state reporting or a state assessment test or a state on there that goes into Aries. 504 starts in that same place in Aries. Then Aries communicates with CalPads. CalPads then communicates with Tom's. So it kind of makes this loop. So if it is not in Aries, it is not going to be on the Tom's site for the kids or in their accommodations or designated supports. And I'd like to have a meeting later with the designated supports. Maybe we need to get together and go through all of those so that we're all on the same page for that meeting. Today was just general stuff, but we do need to make sure we get those kids taken care of. And that may be something, yeah, AJ and Michelle, let's meet and talk about that.
Okay, so why don't do you want me to set up a meeting with just the three of us?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll look for something free on your calendar.
One thing I've been trying to do for everybody, and this may be for teachers and families as well. I've been trying to put everything into one space, and so I have a CASSPP site that is kind of it's got the manuals, the accessibility matrix, some rules for expirations, pausing, how to file a STARS report or an appeal. It's got that Moodle that AJ was talking about, the CASP LPAC YouTube channel, parent notification letters. And when it comes time to the parent notification letters, we'll just do that from the district through Parent Square, just saying 3rd through 11th grade are going to be doing all that. And you may get more parents wanting to opt out or questioning this year. They always have that right. And if parents are questioning why we're even doing this, I mean, it's about measuring what our students are learning. And now a cynic might say that the state is really pushing this year because we're likely to see some really good growth in the next couple of years after kind of bottoming out from COVID and the pandemic. And so in 3 years from now, 4 years from now, I would expect our 5th graders and 6th graders are just kind of flying off the charts in terms of their growth from now. So this is all about establishing a baseline and then moving forward from there. That's what a cynic might say, but an educator would say, well, we just want to know what they've learned this year, and what we can do to make sure that they're successful in the next grade. So going back to that CASSPP site, if there's anything that you feel like I should add, I'll throw it on there without question, if it's going to be beneficial. And I've linked that on the technology website. So there's now a CASS button on the technology site. I'm going to ask Heather if I can put it on her site as well, and then Mike put it on his site. If there's any place else, it should be, because there's, I mean, as you all know, there's a lot of CASP information to go through, and 30% of it probably is really, really relevant and laid out well, and 70% of it is a lot of reading and a little bit difficult to understand unless you're really, really familiar with the system. Right. Those are kind of the basics that I wanted to cover today in terms of being general. Where do you feel like we need to go from here? I mean, specifics, I want to talk special ed with AJ and Michelle and come back a little bit more organized for that component. Paula?
Did you want us to send in a schedule like we've often done in the past, or just trust us to do our schedule and we'll be checking completion rates or whatever?
I work at the district office, Paula. I don't trust you. So yeah, I want those schedules for sure. But I don't, I mean, honestly, it's more about so that Danielle, myself, Heather, Mike, Jamie, so that we can kind of say, we want to be able to support you. And if every school is testing on Tuesday, April 10th at 10 a.m., it may be a bit of an issue. I want to be able to say, okay, our bandwidth should be fine, should be, but I would kind of have a little bit of a freak out if every 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 11th grader were testing at a particular hour.
Do you recommend that the K2s don't use the Wi-Fi during testing?
At a school site, it's probably better to say, teachers, let's do some enrichment, some whiteboard activities, some group stuff aside from internet at this time during the testing, because it will, you know, again, we have enough, but I would want to make sure of that. At the high schools, we get a lot of teachers that ask for, you know, can we have access to this Amazon Prime Video or this Netflix movie? And I would say during this time, we'd want to cut back on that, because it's going to be headaches if you get cut off because of internet, and then you've got to file a status report or something like that. So Keith, you had your hand up. You good?
I was going to ask, I don't know if this is a time to show everyone how to find out if a student has taken the test or not via TOMS. Remember?
Yeah, we'll cover. Wait, so repeat that question, Key, one more time. I wanna make sure.
You remember it's the completion rate. How do you go about doing that? Because you mentioned that. I don't know if it's time today or the next time we meet.
Next time we will, but just to highlight, it's really cool. They've got some stuff going on that they never had before. So they've got some like little cool colored graphs saying X% of your school has completed. And then you can run specific reports as well saying, you know, these 12 or these 125 students have not completed the performance task or the computer adaptive test. And we'll talk about how to run those reports for completion. It's relatively easy as long as you know the navigation to how to get to them, but they are in there, and they'll be beneficial. And teachers can run those reports as well on their side, because if you're at a middle school or a ward law, it might be daunting to go find those 10 kids. You might ask your teachers, or you might give your teachers specific explicit instructions on, go into TOMS, go to reports, pull this report, see which student's missing, make sure that we get them taken care of, or communicate to me if there's specific support needed on getting this kid assessed. All right. Yeah, the only thing I would ask you all to do at this point is go into TOMS, not run, go to your users, make sure you've got your users set up. I think that would be the first thing to do. And then our next meeting will start going into some of those pieces about running reports, about a stairs appeal. I don't want to cover it too soon because we're still, 2 months away from the initial day. And if it's me, I can retain for 3 weeks, maybe, sometimes 4, but 2 months is asking a lot for me. Okay. Any questions before we break up? All right. So 40-minute meeting. I appreciate you coming, and email me if you've got a question about technology or a quote or access or something else that we're not even thinking of right now. So just shoot me a question if you have it, okay? All right. Thank you very much, everybody.